He was a warrior, a rebel, and a king. Loved by many, feared by more, but in the end, good old Robert Baratheon couldn't outrun the weight of his crown. Yeah, I did that. This is a story of the Stag King, from Storm's End to the Iron Throne, and then dying lonely in his bed. So we're just going to jump in right at the beginning. Robert Baratheon was born in 262 AC to Stefan Baratheon and Cassana Estermont. As Lord of Storm's End, Robert's father was shockingly close friends with the Mad King, which turns out in a few years that'd be a terrible thing to be. But tragedy struck early for teenage Robert. And this is where I believe Robert's path did a complete 180 to what it could have been to what it ultimately was. Because Robert's parents were lost at sea, Elsa and Anna's parents' style, lost at sea, never be seen again, leaving him, teenage Robert, the Lord of Storm's End, and head of House Baratheon, which is a lot to put on Robert's shoulders. Robert was sent to foster at the Vale under Lord Jon Arryn, where he met his lifelong friend, Ned Stark. They trained, they fought, they bonded like brothers, where Ned was solemn and thoughtful, Robert was bold, brash, and full of fire. Basically, they reminded each other of their brothers, and that's kind of where their friendship started. So this is the spark that ignited a rebellion. Everything changed in the entire realm at the tourney at Harrenhal. Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, heir to the Iron Throne, won the whole damn thing. And who did he crown as Queen of Love and Beauty? Not his wife Elia Martell, but Lyanna Stark, who, coincidentally enough, disappeared with Rhaegar shortly after that. Her brother, Brandon, rode to King's Landing demanding some sort of answers. The Mad King had Brandon and all of his cohorts rounded up and brought before him, where he basically called their parents and said, yeah, you need to come to King's Landing. When Rickard Stark got there, he demanded a trial by combat, and the Mad King chose his champion, who was fire. And ultimately, Brandon was strangled trying to free himself to save his father, and Rickard Stark was burned alive. And this is when Jon Arryn openly refused the Mad King's request to surrender Robert and Ned. Instead, he rose his own banners in open rebellion. Robert did the same, and so did Ned, and these decisions would shake the Seven Kingdoms forever. Robert's rebellion wasn't just a war, it was a storm. Fast, brutal, and impossible to ignore. After the executions of Brandon and Rickard Stark, Jon Arryn again raised the banners of rebellion. The Vale, the North, and the Stormlands joined forces. At their head stood Robert Baratheon, a man driven by rage and loss and the burning belief that Rhaegar Targaryen stole his soon-to-be bride, Lyanna Stark. Robert was the beating heart of the entire rebellion. Charismatic and fearless, he inspired thousands, but it wasn't just about love. The realm had simply gone and got tired of the Mad King's tyranny, and many lords saw this as their chance to maybe change that. Robert's campaign began in the Stormlands, where he rallied all of his bannermen. After the initial defeat at the Battle of Summerhall, he won a decisive victory at the Battle of Ashford. But it wasn't until the Battle of the Bells that the rebellion was truly saved. Robert had been wounded and was hiding in the town of Stony Sept. John Connington, Hand of the King, sought to just end the rebellion right then and there. But Ned Stark and Hoster Tully arrived just in time. As the bells of the Sept rang out, rebels and loyalists clashed in the streets. The battle was fierce, but the rebels won and Robert escaped. Throughout the war, House Lannister was remarkably silent. Once the Mad King's most powerful ally, Tywin just kinda sat on his ass and relaxed. He waited and he watched, and only when the inevitable outcome was determined did he decide to act. He marched on King's Landing under the guise of, hey, I'll help you out, Mad King. But when the gates were open, Tywin's men sacked the city and brutally slaughtered Rhaegar's wife and children. Aerys, in his final desperate act of madness, ordered the city to be burned, but young Jaime Lannister decided he was just going to stab him in the back, so the wildfire can't exactly kill everyone. While the Lannisters were sacking King's Landing and Jaime killed the Mad King, Robert faced Rhaegar at the Battle of the Trident, the moment that defined the entire war. Rhaegar wore armor encrusted with rubies, But he was no madman like his father. He was a prince, a scholar, a warrior, and perhaps the most misunderstood character in all of Game of Thrones. Robert slew Rhaegar with a single crushing blow. His warhammer caved in the prince's chest, sending the rubies flying all into the river. The rebellion was won, but something in Robert died with Rhaegar. After the Trident, Ned Stark rode south, not to King's Landing, but to Dorne. The Tower of Joy specifically, where his sister Lyanna Stark lay dying. What she whispered to Ned is one of the greatest secrets in Westeros. But what's certain is this: Robert never saw her again. The woman he claimed to love died in childbirth, and that child, Rhaegar's son, was hidden from the world. With the Mad King dead and the Targaryens scattered, Robert took the Iron Throne. Not because he wanted it, but because no one else could hold it. The rebellion ended, but the real game had just begun. A Game of Thrones. With the Targaryens defeated and the Mad King dead, Robert Baratheon was crowned King of the Seven Kingdoms. But he never wanted the throne. Not really. His warhammer was traded in for goblets of wine, his battlefield glory turned into drunken excess, he married Cersei Lannister, that was a shit show that just quickly soured into open hatred. He hated ruling, he hated everything about ruling. He left the kingdom in debt, relied on other people to rule or find him gold, and he let the realm slip through his fingers. He sired dozens of bastards, but not one true heir. Joffrey was no Baratheon, but Robert didn't know that, or he just didn't care to ask. In the end, it wasn't an upstart king, it wasn't a knight, it wasn't even a paid assassin that did Robert in. It was a boar. Some say the wine was too strong, some say the Lannister cupbearer was too silent, some think he was poisoned, maybe he just got old, maybe he got a little thicker and the boar bested him on that day. Either way, he was gored and left dying, and they barely got him back to the Red Keep. On his deathbed, he named Ned Stark, his brother basically, as protector of the realm. He trusted Ned like a brother, and that trust would lead to more chaos, another war, and the death of damn near everyone. Robert's death unleashed a storm onto Westeros. His son Joffrey took the throne, Ned was executed, and Westeros spiraled into the War of the Five Kings. Robert left behind two brothers, Renly and Stannis. Stannis was cold and unforgiving, Renly absolutely charming and untested, and he also left a trail of bastards as long as the eye could see, Gendry being the last true living heir. Robert Baratheon won the throne with fire and fury. He ruled it with wine and weariness, and in the end, he was a man built for war, not for peace. And he was a king who never wanted to be the king, and in the worst way possible. Robert Baratheon, the last great rebel, and the first fallen king.